generation.
On BakerMoreShow.com, the Republican candidate for governor.
Have sexual relations with
I realize that this is something he is
We're not going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Good morning, Cleveland. Welcome to another year of Backfire.
Whole year's worth, huh?
A whole year's worth with Franklin Chansey and John Stanberry, myself, Steve Doball Hickson, and my chief engineer, Daniel Brantley. Thank you, everyone, for doing. This is our 6th year now, I believe, of doing Backfire. I think we started January 6 years ago.
That explains the gray hair in my beard.
Well, just be thankful it's not more than your beard like me. It's everywhere.
That's more information than I needed, John.
I'm sorry, Franklin, I meant my hair. You know.
Well, I'm glad that you guys are laughing this morning and in good circles. Had a nice rest. And got through the New Year's okay. 2018. Going to be a good year, isn't it?
I certainly hope so.
I do, too. How about Georgia? I want to talk about the SEC a little bit. How about the SEC playing in the national championship? Alabama and Georgia.
Wow.
I mean, what do you expect? The SEC's always a leader.
These other teams have a hard time competing with the SEC, don't they?
They do. Except, of course, for Tennessee.
I'm a cynic. I just see that as an opportunity. We're one tornado away from being back on top.
Well, I've got to say, I told you so.
About what?
Everyone
Everyone.
in Cleveland that was for this lawsuit.
Oh.
Cleveland does not have to share liquor by the drink sales tax proceeds with Bradley County. Now, that's the way it was meant to be. That's the way it was structured to be. When they put this on the ballot on the city, they asked the county if they wanted to be part of it, and they said no, they didn't want to be. They didn't think it would pass. Now, I remember when all this happened, and then it was voted on, and it passed. And then the county got all tore up and thought they'd go put it on the ballot. So, what is it, another year or so later, they got it on the ballot.
Right.
So, basically, the money that we're talking about is in between these time frames, I think. So, Anyway, I understand that this has been turned down again. There's a meeting with the county school board to discuss the matter with their attorney, Jimmy Logan, and that he is saying that they ain't got anything to worry about. He wants to appeal it again, I think is what he's going to say, because it ain't going to cost them anything. Now, should this continue to go on, or should we just bring it to an end right now?
Well, there are 4 other cities who were in the same.
Ain't got anything to do with us. That ain't got anything to do with us.
Well, I think the argument was that they're going to, one or more of them is going to appeal it anyway, and therefore there's no harm in going along for the ride, so to speak. That would be the theory anyway. Now, I happen to disagree with the idea. I think that the ruling's the correct one by the court. So from that standpoint, you know, I don't personally expect it to change, but you know, different minds can disagree.
Well, Mr. Logan says it ain't going to cost anything if the appeal goes on, because he said he wasn't going to charge. But let's say that something happens and they were to win. Would he get a percentage then?
I don't know what his agreement with the county is.
I mean, that's a pretty good deal. He got paid on the front end to do all this, and now he's wanting to keep appealing it.
I don't know if
that's kind of like in Vegas. They call that betting on the come.
Okay.
That's what they call that, I think.
Yeah. I don't know that that's his agreement with them at all. I don't know if that's true or false.
I don't know either, but there's a meeting being called, I think, about it. Maybe I want to go.
Well, my daughter fusses at me because she said I always go for odd takes on these things. For me, the important thing about all of this is that it just further illustrates government doesn't care about anybody. They don't want to help you. All they want is more money and more power. And you think all this is a fight between two government entities over money, because money buys them power, money hires more employees, money grows their influence, and that's all it's ever about for government. Government grows, always grows.
Well, here's what I think it's about. I think it's something that should have never been involved in the legal system. It was pretty well spelled out on the front end. Someone's trying to interpret it in a different direction than it was originally intended to be, and trying to run it through the courts. Now, I think as citizens of this community, the Bradley County School Board, when they're talked to about this, need to say enough is enough. It's keeping our community split, and let's end this lawsuit. It has not won through two sets of courts now. Am I right?
That's correct.
So let's end it. Let's just end it. It's very simple to do. Say enough's enough and do it for your community. Thank you. I can't believe y'all not fired up more about this.
What do you expect? They want money. They're grubbing over money. They're fighting and grubbing over money, which is what government does.
Well, should we continue to back it?
I think you should learn a lesson from it, that the smaller you can keep government, the less power you can give government, the more of this kind of waste you'll avoid.
Agree or disagree? Call and tell us.
Every time somebody says, well, government could do this, government can't do anything better than the private sector will do it. Unless you're talking about protecting us, which is really one of the only constitutional things the government is actually required to do, there are very few areas where private sector can't serve better.
Well, as a citizen of this community, we all know, the majority of us know how this was structured and set up. So for me to sit here and watch this appeal continue to just go on is a total waste of taxpayer dollars and time.
Well, now I will tell you that I will defend the school board, and that's odd for me in a little bit, but just to explain the nuances of what happened here. The people that said we don't want to participate in the referendum were opposed to the tax. They didn't want the tax levied. They didn't want to do this. They didn't want this money being brought in. And they didn't think it would pass, and it probably wouldn't have passed countywide. And so the city picked up that mantle and said, we're going to push this through. It was a really low turnout election. There's a lot of question as to whether it would have passed had it been on a major ballot year, but it passed. The county school board, different set of people. They probably did want it. They probably did want the revenue.
They didn't want it until it passed all the...
My point is, those are different people. There were people on the commission that said, we don't want to do this. We don't want it to happen. We're not going to do it on the county level. The city picked it up and did it on the city level. Once it passed, though, the school board is a different set of people. And they looked at it and said, we did want that to happen. And so now...
Why they wanted it to happen.
They want the money.
That's right.
It's always about the money.
It was about the money, and it was because the county commission put it on the school board that we'd do it for you. We'll do it for you to try to make them look better.
That's my point. The school board is a different set of people from the commission. They wouldn't have probably agreed on the front end. They would have wanted to go in with the city.
Well, should the school board, what do you think, how should they vote now?
Well, I'm telling you that more for background. You're right. It's sort of a moot point. Mm-hmm. But my point is the same people that are now pushing to get their part of the money were not the people that said no to the original offer. Had they been on the county commission, the school board people probably would have voted yes to go with the city on it from the start.
Anyway, I hope that the county school board will say enough's enough and let's move on as a community.
Now, this is a new school board. I mean, there are new people on the school board, so we'll have to see what they do.
They're still familiar with it.
No, what I mean is the group that started this, a lot of those are off the school board at this point, so maybe you will have a different vote.
Let's do it. School board, vote not to move on with this. Thank you. Marijuana stocks. Did you buy any?
No.
Did you buy any marijuana stock?
No, I didn't.
Well, it's
I missed that opportunity somehow.
marijuana stocks soar as California legalizes recreational pot. How do you reckon that? How do you legalize something that's illegal federally?
Well, you remove the state violation.
Still a federal violation.
It may be a federal violation, but the state violation is gone at this point.
So the state violation is gone, but
I mean, most prosecutions for small drug offenses are on the state level.
So when ICE comes in there to govern the sanctuary city, will they be able to make pot arrests from a federal side?
Yes.
If there's a federal law that's involved, of course they could.
Well, the new guy that's over ICE, he says that California is going to be saturated with ICE employees. They're going there and they're going to make.
Well, but that's because of their sanctuary state policy.
That's
more than
correct.
This policy.
That's right. But while they're there, should they back up?
But that wouldn't.
Well, ICE
wouldn't violate any provisions of the Constitution or the law. That's the federal government enforcing its own regulations and laws.
That's right, because California won't help.
Well, I mean, it's like, for example, if you rob a convenience store here in Tennessee, they can prosecute you. There are state laws you have violated, and there are federal laws you have violated. One of our arguments on the gun control issue was the NRA and gun rights groups have vigorously pushed for federal prosecutions. When you prosecute people under federal gun laws, they go to federal prison, and they go for minimum times, and by that I mean you're going to go for at least 5 years to a federal prison. That has a bigger impact. So you can choose to prosecute either way. In this case, the state just said, we're not going to have a state law against marijuana use. You're still violating a federal law. Now, the real question will come when they start refusing to cooperate with federal authorities on these drug busts, just like they're refusing to cooperate with federal authorities on immigration law.
That's right.
By the way, someone has been putting up extremely official-looking signs on state highways in California welcoming MS-13 to the state. They are now a sanctuary state.
They're welcoming MS-13 and several other.
Well, the sign says, official sanctuary state, felons, illegals, and MS-13 welcome. Democrats need the votes. And you pull it up on the web, folks, if you want to see the picture. It has the state seal on it and everything. It looks official.
Well, I guess they'll have to leave Alabama, where they all voted for Doug Jones, I guess.
Well, now that, it's funny that he mentioned Alabama, because that's exactly what Alabama did on the civil rights. They elected Wallace, and he, upon being inaugurated, turned around and said that they were not going to enforce these federal civil rights laws. They were going to stand against the federal government. So Jerry Brown and the progressive liberal Democrats of California are standing arm in arm with George Wallace and the state of Alabama during the civil rights movement.
California's starting
going to the Olympics, John, because that was a prodigious leap.
California's
I
starting
had to go back 55 years for that one.
California's starting to be kind of its own little world. What do you think we should do with it?
It's declaring itself its own. It's saying it has its own immigration laws.
Well, should we just cut them off?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, if you're not, that's what, I just asked Franklin, he's making fun of me for going back 55 years. Did you approve of how the feds handled Alabama with George Wallace when he refused to follow federal law?
Sure.
Then what Franklin's saying is the federal government should step in and basically take control in California.
The difference here is that California has not taken the position that the federal government can't come in and enforce federal law in California. What they've said is, we don't have to do it for you, which is a somewhat different argument.
No, they said, we're not going to cooperate. Do it for you. And y'all do that every time.
Yeah.
Do it. They didn't say we won't do it for you. They said we won't give you any cooperation in being able to do it.
Okay.
They're trying to make it difficult, is what you're trying to say.
They're not just trying to make it difficult. They're refusing to give any cooperation. They're not going to tell you where these people are. They're not going to hand them over to you when they have them in hand. They don't care how many innocent civilians get killed.
Or their argument is that it helps them actually save people's lives.
Jerry Brown, in signing the law, actually said that this was a good balance between the protecting the citizens of California and alleviating the fear of the illegals. Now you think about that for a minute, folks. You're a sovereign United States citizen, and you now have a state government that's balancing your safety against the fear that an illegal community has. That'd be like saying, well, you know, folks, we'd like to prevent armed robbery, but we don't want to scare the robbers too much, so we're balancing your defense of being robbed at gunpoint with not wanting to upset the criminals too much.
Except if we're being honest about this, then we have to also discuss the fact that the vast majority of these illegals are people that we have invited here to do work for us.
And where would we discuss that, Franklin?
How about now?
Where would we discuss that?
What's your point you're making?
Well, I guess my point would be it would be good if we had some kind of national forum to discuss these things and even take a vote on them. Maybe we should establish that. Maybe we could call it Congress that passes federal law that we all agree in a compact called the Constitution to obey.
Perhaps if the Republican Party would engage in a debate about actually solving the problem, we could do something.
All right, I tell you what, Franklin.
Since they have refused to do that,
you mean like the Democrats
since they've refused to even listen to their own Republicans who want to talk about it.
Franklin, we have debates,
it won't
and
even
you
come up
lose.
for a vote, John.
Just
vote on it.
What point of you all
Bring
lost
it up for
do
a
you
vote.
not get? You lost.
Which part of a number of Republicans would
I don't
vote for
care
this?
how many. There's
That's
not a
right.
no, Franklin.
There you go.
When you have
You don't
51%, then I'll care. When you have 48%, it doesn't matter how many Republicans are involved. They lost. They were in the minority.
The Republicans lost, John. Now you're saying that.
I'm saying that the people on that side of that issue so far have not prevailed in what we call the legal government.
Because they haven't gotten 61 votes.
Really? You're going to go there? That's
Yes.
the Robert Byrd rule.
Whether
It's
it
the Democrat
again, you
rules.
got to go back 55
We're playing,
years.
No,
Yeah,
he
you do.
was there, 5 years ago?
You got to go back 55 years
Franklin,
to come
it's
up with
his
that rule.
rule. Then change
The
the
point
rule.
is, John, that a vast majority of the country actually wants
you're
something.
wrong.
You are wrong.
No, I'm not wrong.
What-
Matter of fact,
what
the
do they
surveys
want?
in California show they're opposed
Franklin,
to this.
what do they want?
A reasonable immigration system that allows people to come in and
Now,
fill
wait a
in
minute.
these jobs
Did
that they want them to
Donald
fill in.
Donald Trump run his election based on immigration and what he was going to do?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
won?
He did.
Then the majority spoke.
Well, okay.
Okay.
So
you can't say
don't
the majority.
spoke. A majority of electoral votes spoke, for sure. He didn't
It's
win a
called-
majority of the
it's
votes.
called the rule of law, Franklin. Do you
I'm
believe
not
it or
disagreeing with it. I'm just saying, let's not say it's something that it's
But
not.
that's my point, Franklin. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does
no,
matter.
it doesn't.
does
You
not.
either believe in the rule of law or you don't.
Nobody suggested
No,
otherwise.
yes, you did.
No, I
You
didn't.
suggested that because he didn't get a majority of the popular vote,
No,
that somehow it wasn't legitimate.
I said my statement was a majority of Americans would support
Actually,
this.
that's not true either.
Yeah, no.
The polling in
And that's
California actually shows that even among the Hispanic community, they're opposed to this.
Okay, you say so.
I'll bring you the numbers in, Franklin.
Okay, John.
Let's keep going here. Here's another kind of story. It goes along with the
No,
California
wait.
marijuana.
Let me follow up one other thing, though, Franklin. Can I, on my side of the law, pick and choose? Because I guarantee you, in Tennessee, we could probably pass a law saying we don't think that the ban on silencers is correct. So we're going to legalize silencer purchase in Tennessee, and we're going to tell the Tennessee gun merchants that they don't have to send any of the paperwork into the FBI. Can we do that? Would you support that?
Well,
Because a majority in Tennessee would support that.
Oh, well, maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. I doubt that, actually. I doubt
you're
the
wrong.
veracity of that statement.
You're wrong.
But be that as it may, there is a difference. We're not talking about a federal law requiring the state of California to do something. We're talking about a insistence that's not part of federal law. There is a difference.
There's not a difference.
John, there's one good
You
thing.
either obey the law or you don't. You're either part of the country or you're not.
Okay.
If California doesn't want to be part of the country, fine. Quit taking any federal dollars.
You're going to have to get rid of Boston.
Is
and you're gonna have to
California
get rid of-
losing population now?
Absolutely. They've lost hundreds of thousands of people over the last couple of years. Most of them have been middle class
Is
people.
New York losing population?
New York is losing population as well, and you'll see more of that with the new tax law come into place.
Did the new tax law, is that good?
It's a new tax law.
Is the new tax law good?
Well, if
Something good.
90%
It's
of
not in the long-term good of the country, no.
It's not. That is great for us. The fact that the Democrats are going to run on the fact that a tax cut for 90+% of United States citizens is a bad thing, I am excited.
No,
about that.
no. The average person on the street here having a couple of $100 extra bucks in their pocket this year, that's a good thing. There's nobody's going to say that's a bad thing, okay? But you balance that out with people at the top who have a couple of million extra dollars in their pocket.
Actually,
no. While we're
have-
complaining and bitching about the federal deficit, doesn't make any sense. While we're complaining about the crumbling infrastructure, doesn't make any sense. So no, it's not in the long-term benefit of the country. It's in the short-term feel-good mentality, which has
Franklin,
infected the Republican Party.
percentage-wise, who got the bigger cut in this bill? Who got the biggest percentage tax cut in the bill?
The middle income say it.
The middle income people.
Not when you balance in the
No, you're
the
wrong.
extra
You're
costs that
actually
come with it.
completely wrong, Franklin.
It's apples and oranges.
No, it's
you're
not,
talking about.
Franklin. What
John,
the Democrats
first
did
of all, let me say I
every
don't
year.
care. I don't
Of
care.
course you
what
don't
you're saying.
care because it's about
Because
government
it's
and
still
control.
not in the best interest of the country.
Lowering
it's time
taxes.
for
Lowering taxes is not in the best interest.
No,
of the
because
country.
it emasculates government.
So we need to raise taxes and give more away? Is that what
You
you're saying?
need more power in the federal government, is what he's saying.
Do we need to raise taxes?
Oh, you could make that argument easily.
What, do we need to raise taxes so we could give more away?
We need to be building roads and bridges. I know that.
Well, you know how we can build roads and bridges, Franklin?
All kinds of ways.
Well, that's right, without raising taxes.
Really? How are we going to do that?
Well, let's see. What's that country that we're stopping? We're not going to pay 280 something. Pakistan. We're not going to pay them $287 billion or $1 million. I'm not even sure. How many other countries could we stop paying and maybe put our money back in the infrastructure?
Well, we could quit funding the UN would be a start.
Yeah, that's another good place. Let's stop funding the UN. Now then,
Now,
do
all
we
those,
have to
all
raise-
those combined
do we have
didn't
to raise
come
taxes?
close to what y'all gave as a tax
No,
cut.
what we have to do is entitlement reform. But when we do, they'll run another ad of the Speaker of the House pushing a little old lady in
This
a wheelchair
is exactly
off.
what's
Wait a
going to
minute.
happen.
Could the post office go up on their rates?
The
If
post office.
if the Congress passes a law that says they can, they can.
Well,
The post office could go out of business, and we could actually let UPS and
That's
FedEx handle that.
what was it President Trump said about our
And look, I
Post
love the
office
post
system.
office, and I love people that work at the post office. I don't want anybody to lose their job, but the point here is there's a reality at play. Now, the post office, as they've been forced to compete, has actually become more competitive. But it's very difficult for a government agency to compete with a private industry
That's right.
because
Because
they
they
offer
can't.
too many benefits.
Well, here, let me say something. This is what Donald Trump said. Why is the U.S. Post Office, which is losing many billions of dollars a year, while charging Amazon and others so little to deliver their packages, making Amazon richer? The post office is dumber and poorer.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the Amazon deal is, but I will tell you that if Amazon is using them instead of using FedEx or UPS, it's probably because they're getting a better deal. They probably should be charging Amazon more.
That's
and
right.
maybe that'd make a difference in the profitability.
That's what Trump is talking about, I think. That the post office is not making good business decisions. Amazon's getting rich right now.
Well, Franklin, let me just finish what I was saying a minute ago. The top percentage earners in the country actually get a lower amount percentage-wise of these tax cuts. The bottom 50% gets a higher percentage of the tax cuts. So it actually reduces the total tax burden that the middle class and the lower class are paying.
Unless you're
And
running a hedge fund, in which case it's virtually tax-free.
Franklin, you got all kinds of
unless you're a big real estate developer, in which case you got a big tax cut that nobody else
So
got.
what? They spend millions of dollars promoting the economy, Franklin. Guy, let me just tell you this. What Franklin's doing is class warfare. The Democrats have done it for decades. And guess what, folks?
Those
it
poor,
will
oppressed
destroy
people.
Well, Franklin,
Oh my God, how awful it must have been the last 30 years when their fortunes went from $100 million to $2 billion.
Let me read you
Oh my
something from
God,
Let
the
me
crushing weight of the federal government.
Hey, did
something
their
from
fortunes go?
today.
Did their fortunes go up because of a tax increase?
In some cases, yes.
Well, you don't think they?
There was a
used-
tax increase when Bill Clinton was there. It went up. It went up massively.
the first 2
There was
years
a
and
tax.
then he cut
There was a
taxes.
tax. There was a tax.
Why
cut.
do you think the stock market is doing so well right now?
American businesses have been making record profits for the last 6 years.
No, why do you
No,
think it's doing
Franklin.
so well right
That's
now?
usually what drives stocks prices.
What-
Profits.
No, what do you think is
This
doing so
last
well right now?
year.
This last year, since Trump
Same
went
thing.
in-
Profit.
Since Trump went into office, what do you think it is?
Beats me.
I'm going to tell you what it is.
Nothing different's changed.
No,
in that period
no,
of
wait a
time.
minute. No. I know of people that own businesses that would not spend any money during Obama's campaign. They didn't know where. What would happen if they did
It's
spend
like-
money
it's
and
like,
try to grow the business?
It's like AT&T's
There are
announcement
people.
this
No,
week.
wait a minute. There are companies across the United States that feel so good about getting rid of Obama. They're coming across with a positive attitude now,
Yes, like AT&T.
and they're
right?
starting to spend money.
Like
Yeah, see,
AT&T.
Good, Franklin. Run on that.
Let's
run
do
on
that.
the fact that you're upset that AT&T paid bonuses and pay
There
raises
you
to
go,
their
John.
people. Run on that.
Because there's the great lie. It turns out those bonuses were really severance packages. They announced tens of thousands of layoffs yesterday.
They're hiring new people, Franklin.
They laid off 10,000 people
Franklin,
yesterday.
that's called business.
Yes, you're right, John. It is business.
Yeah.
But don't give me this phony lie that if we just cut their taxes a little bit, they're going to go on this wave of investment.
You know, Franklin,
they were
you
sitting
can say
on
whatever you
$1
wanna
trillion worth of cash they weren't spending already.
Franklin, you can say
They're
whatever
gonna
you want to
do- all
say.
they're gonna
In
do-
8 years, Obama never had a 3% GDP. And guess
growth.
what? Trump is on record to
And
have
no
a
other president you can
4% his first year, Franklin.
other president you
4% his first
without
Jimmy-
a single economic package that passed during that time.
Well, you know what, Franklin?
In other words, he was operating on the same rules that Obama brought.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, he was.
Franklin, these companies reacted to his election.
Oh, my God.
And you can't say, oh my gosh, because your Messiah, Paul Krugman, said that the market would crash and would never recover. That's his quote from last
I didn't
November.
say that.
He's the New York Times.
The business people I talked to feel like told me they feel like the handcuffs have been taken off.
Okay.
They can actually operate
5,000
again.
point surge in the
Okay.
Dow Jones, the largest annual gain in the history of the Dow Jones.
5,000 points.
5,000 point surge.
Was it the largest percentage change? No. But you seem to make a difference in those two things.
Franklin, I give facts. It's a 5,000 point surge.
Okay.
Now, guess what? I hate to break it to you, Franklin, but when the Dow was at 2,000, a 5,000 point surge would be what? 250%
Exactly.
increase. When it's at 20,000 and it goes to 25,
As I just
it's
said,
well,
there have been
Franklin,
higher percentage growths before.
Did you see I happened to turn it.
Listen, we had a 5,000 point surge on the market, and he's still splitting hairs. Well, folks, you know that's not that not that big.
I was watching CNN yesterday, Franklin. Believe that?
You were you?
Yeah. I thought I'd flip it over and see what they're talking about. And they had someone who were analyzing the tax breaks. And they had 3 families that they were having some tax person really analyze their taxes. And all 3 of them were going to get money back.
Yeah, they screwed up on that. They thought they were going to get people that were going to have. 2 of them thought they were going to get a tax increase.
Yeah.
And all 3 of them got a tax cut.
That's right.
USA Today was so desperate to show the tax bill as, this tax hike that they showed 5 households, including, now listen to this, a childless, single, renter earning $1 million a year, paying $50,000 in state and local taxes, and claiming $40,000 in charitable deductions, the paper triumphantly pointed out that this downtrodden soul would pay $1,887 more in taxes. So a single earner making $1 million a year saw an increase, Franklin. Isn't that the kind of person you wanted to have an increase?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But USA Today is actually using him as their poster boy for, he might have to pass up a bottle of Chateau, Rothschild. He might not be able to buy his champagne this year.
By the way, John, looking back historically, only 2 presidents ever had a greater percentage improvement in the stock market than Barack Obama.
You're right. Barack Obama was great for the New York Wall Street set. But
you were just bragging on that a minute ago, John. Which is
I wasn't bragging on
yeah,
it. I'm
you
giving
were.
it to you. No, I'm telling you
telling me that
your people ran a campaign
that
said that Donald Trump. No, your people ran a campaign that said Donald Trump would destroy the markets.
We're on a 115-month bull market now, and 103 of those months occurred while Barack Obama was president.
You're right, Frank.
And
it
you're
was a
saying
bull market.
This crushing weight of Obama on government, on business.
Franklin, they were profitable, but they weren't expanding. They weren't hiring new people. They
did hire new people.
No, they didn't.
The
Franklin.
unemployment rate fell
Actually,
for
that's not
6.5
true.
consecutive years.
When you adjust for the labor force participation rate, that's not true.
If you get some real numbers, you'd know the truth, Franklin.
Okay.
You couldn't get any real numbers when Obama was president.
You're
telling me that at the end of the Obama
I'm telling you
the
that
unemployment rate was not lower.
I said the labor participation rate. Maybe you want to read some economic things and understand the difference.
Yeah, John. Go ahead. Why don't you just teach me, John? Teach me, please.
Then look up labor participation rate.
Teach me, John.
Okay. Excuse me. We need to take a break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
And you're listening to WOOPLP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Another SOS, and you're stressing, and that's the time to check in. Check in to cash, check in. When you have a cash emergency, you check in. We understand the urgency. Check in to get your loans and more. You gotta check in with your checking to cash. Walk in, call in, click in, go all in. Check in to cash in, check in to cash. Your one-stop money shop. Check into cash.
Why would you put up with a heating and cooling system that cycles on and off when you can have quiet, true comfort, variable speed by train? It runs at low speeds with continuous little adjustments to keep your home comfortable and quiet. It's always been hard to stop a train. Now, it's hard to hear one.
When you want an unconventionally efficient heating and air unit that keeps your home right in the comfort zone, day in and day out, nothing will do but a Train. To get the best Train service, call your local Train comfort specialist. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. Keeping you comfortable is Mechanical Systems' only business, and they've been providing high-quality service and installation for more than 30 years. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. That's 336-5739.
It's hard to stop a train.
Tired of standing in line to cash your paycheck? Go to usmoneycard.com. Company doesn't provide direct deposit? Visit usmoneycard.com, the smart and safe alternative to carrying cash. We'll provide direct deposit for your prepaid debit card, or you can deposit cash anytime. Your US Money Card is reloadable and can be used wherever MasterCard is accepted. You never have to worry about overdraft fees. Spend what you deposit. So log on, load up, and love your US Money Card, the safe and smart way to spend. Visit usmoneycard.com for complete details.
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
every Saturday. That's right. every Saturday.
From 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239. Or go see him
every Saturday
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933. 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
Hello, my name is Andy Figglestaller with Ed Jacobs & Associates. We are an employee benefit and insurance broker in business for the past 20 years. The new healthcare law, also known as Obamacare, has finally arrived. The law is complex and the choices are confusing. You have questions, we have the answers. It is our passion to find cost-effective solutions for every client. The solutions will be different for every person or business. Let our knowledge, experience, and passion go to work for you. Contact us today and let us assist you through this process. Our phone number is 423-473-0202, or you can find us on the web at edjacobs.com.
If you need a little green, Lending Frog is making deals. He'll lend you cash on any kind of wheels. Borrow just a little, or you can borrow big. Lending Frog is a new financial gig. It's hip to hop into cash. LendingFrog.com is making a splash. Dig it, dig it. Dig it, dig it.
Rent to own. Hey, my Clevelanders, it's Fro. If you need to fill up some rooms in your home, but you don't have a lot of dough, go see my friends at Economy Rentals for a washer and dryer set for only $19.95 a week, or 2 rooms of furniture for your living room and bedroom for only $39.95 a week. Hey, 35 years in business, Economy Rentals is Cleveland's oldest family-owned rent-to-own store. Free delivery and setup. Economy Rentals. Rent-to-own? Make it easy to own. Inventory reduction sale. Hey, mention you heard it on Whoop and get 10% off all bedding. Economy Rentals. That's 901 Sahara Drive, or call 472-6105. Visit them on the web at economyrentals.net. 901 Sahara Drive or 472-6105.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
More than I was, I'm sure.
Are we back? Are we live? Okay, we're back with you. Everybody's calm and casual.
Hey, by the way, you're talking about CNN. CNN put a reporter on a cannabis bus and had her actually light up the bong for people on the bus. She's wearing marijuana earrings.
I saw that.
Now look, I understand states are changing law, and I understand that there's differing opinions on this. But when you have a national news organization promoting it on national TV when kids are watching, I just don't understand how everybody couldn't look at that and say, culturally, I'm not sure this is good for us.
Let me lead into another one here. The marijuana in California is one article here, and then I've got another one here. It says less than 1 ounce of marijuana leads to arrest of more than 60 Georgia partygoers. The police went into a house where a party was ongoing, and there was pot smoking going on. They found an ounce of pot and wanted to know whose it was. Everybody at the party declined ownership, so they arrested everybody that was at the party and charged them with possession of pot because it was it.
That's been a frequent law enforcement tactic to charge everybody, although honestly,
it sounds to me like
it doesn't work very well because the state has the burden of proof.
Yeah, but they're really all. I would assume the point of that was to teach a lesson.
So you've got that going on in Georgia, and then you got CNN celebrating the pot being passed in Chicago illegally.
Well, here's what, and I've said this before, here's what kills me. Every time I see one of those commercials, those truth commercials, about how we're going to end cigarette smoking. Now, cigarette smoking, tobacco, is a legal product, and we are spending millions of dollars. As a matter of fact, this state of Florida just won a judgment last week, I believe it was, to continue to enforce those payments. R.J. Reynolds had sold off all their properties to other tobacco companies. Those companies were refusing to pay some of the settlement numbers that were settled, I think, in 98 or 99. And the court said, no, you got to continue to pay that. So we're doing all of this to stop cigarette smoking. And at the same time, that culturally, the same people who are just climbing all over the cigarette companies are celebrating the pot companies, which, by the way, pot is actually more carcinogenic than tobacco is. And so I just look at that on a lot.
Carcinogenic?
Cancer causing.
Okay.
Cancer causing. Pot is actually more cancer causing than tobacco is. And so I just look at the people, and it aggravates me on a logical basis. You know, if you're against tobacco because it causes cancer, why would you turn around and open the door for a new cancer causing, potentially more addictive substance? Well, because it's cool.
Cleveland Utilities is requesting us to do energy consumption during the cold
I'm glad
times.
you brought that up.
Yeah.
Now, let me see if I understand this right.
Okay.
They just raised our rates because we're not using enough energy.
Right.
Now, I would assume that means they have excess capacity.
That's right.
If they have excess capacity, why are they worried about a momentary spike because of the cold weather?
Because everybody using it at once, I think.
But my point is that they're claiming they've got to raise our rates because they have built in all of this generating capacity and we're not using enough of it anymore. Well, that would indicate that there's a pretty big space between what we're using and what they're able to produce.
Well, let's go into something else. Why is gas prices going up right now?
I don't know. It comes and goes.
But why? Does anybody know why?
Well, weather affects things. I mean, the cold snap that we're having makes it harder to transport some of it from up in the northern part of the country down to the refineries in the south. Some of the stuff that's getting here now went through refineries back in the summer when the hurricanes were going on, so they were down for a while. There's all kinds of market forces involved.
Well, and traditionally, to be honest, it's not. I mean, it's going up
every time there's a holiday.
10 cents. Well, that's part of marketplace forces too.
But why would it go up? I mean, they're talking about we have more of it now, so why would the price go up?
Well, you have more.
You've come through a high demand portion of the year for the holidays. I mean, there's all kinds of factors.
But you have more oil. That doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't change your refining capabilities, and it doesn't change where some of that oil comes from. Some of it's more expensive than others. The thing about that is the oil companies traditionally have earned about 8 to 9 cents return on the dollar. That's not a real high profit margin. Now, this is the kind of argument that Franklin and I get into all the time. Do they make billions of dollars in profit? Yes, but it's still about 8 or 9 cents on the dollar.
Franklin, do you see where the airlines are giving back bonuses to the employees?
No, I did not see that one.
That came out this morning, I heard on the news, but all the airlines are really going to give, with this tax break, they're going to give a lot of bonuses to their employees.
Well, if that means that they'll stop shrinking the seats, that will mean more to me.
What's next for the Russian investigation?
Wait a minute. You mentioned the airlines.
Okay.
Do you want to congratulate the president?
About?
His tweet yesterday.
Tell me what he said.
Well, he took credit for the fact that there hadn't been a civilian airliner death in the last 12 months.
Are you sure he did, or wasn't CNN?
No, it was his tweet.
Oh, okay.
That was his. And of course, the interesting part about that was there hadn't been one in 7 years.
Sure it wasn't fake news?
No, it was history. Trust me when I tell you I follow the president on Twitter. I eagerly look forward to it. I mean, honestly, yesterday he said his nuclear button was bigger than.
Oh, I love that comment. I love that one. Did you?
That made me feel better.
I did. Actually, there was something interesting. This ties into something else. You wouldn't know it if you watch CNN or CBS or any of them, but there's actually protests going on in Iran right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like there were in 2009. And Here's two people weighed in on this from two opposite sides of the spectrum. Mitt Romney, profoundly moving to watch those seeking freedom in Iran. Patriots afar remind us of the patriots who won our own freedom and also those who preserve it. Heroes all. Now that's Mitt Romney. Here's Hillary Clinton. The Iranian people, especially the young, are protesting for the freedom and future they deserve. I hope their government responds peacefully and supports their hopes. So Mitt Romney says they're going to take this like we took our freedom. Hillary says, gee, I sure hope the government lets them have some. Wouldn't that be nice? And my point about this is President Trump tweeted about it, and Newsweek ran a story. Now, this is Newsweek's Twitter feed. Trump bars Americans on Twitter, but tells Iran to unblock social media sites. So they're comparing Trump barring on Twitter with Iran. Now, these are some people responding. Trump, I will block people who incessantly spam my account. Iran, we're shutting down the internet so we can continue to oppress and murder our citizens without consequences. Newsweek, these are the same thing. So Trump bans specific people from his Twitter feed. Iran shuts the entire internet down, and Newsweek equates those two things together.
That's because we have higher standards here, John.
Franklin, have you ever banned anybody?
I'm not the government.
No,
I'm not the president.
Look, Franklin, he personally banned someone. Like a girlfriend bans an ex-boyfriend. And he didn't ban them from the internet. He banned them from being able to send stuff to him. And that's compared to a oppressive totalitarian regime shutting the entire internet down for the entire country. And by the way, for all of the good liberals who were crying about net neutrality, guess what? If you shut the internet down, the big IPNs don't make any money. So the companies being in charge of the internet won't shut it down. Governments shut the internet down. So what we just did was put the power back in the hands of the people.
What we just did was put the power back in the hands of corporations who can now charge people.
Yes, because that's how capitalist countries work. That's how capitalism works.
Well, I guess you'll be okay then. Let's sell off the interstates and charge people to use them. That's your next plan, right? That'd be the same principle.
They do in Florida now, don't they?
Well, they built private roadways there. They did that.
Okay.
That's a little different. But the government built these.
Has it worked or not? Has the private roadways worked?
Depends on whether you can use them or not. Whether they work.
Franklin, a company that doesn't allow anybody to use their product goes out of business.
Okay.
And by the way, as far as controlling the internet, if that's really the hill you're going to die on, you're in good stead, because Iran controls the internet, Saudi Arabia controls the internet, North Korea controls the internet, China controls the internet. So congratulations, you're in good company.
Except that we didn't control it. We allowed it to stay open, unfettered. That's the difference.
No, Franklin, I'm glad you made that point, because when did we allow it to stay open, unfettered? Up until 2015, when Obama passed this law. How did all of the internet grow unfettered before we had net neutrality? How long's net neutrality been around?
We passed that in response to efforts by companies to charge more money for using it.
Who built the internet?
The government did.
No.
Actually, John,
I thought
the
Al Gore
government
did.
passed the regulations which allowed it to develop the way it did.
But it had developed in a free market, Franklin. The very companies you're accusing, you're saying, startup companies won't be able to do anything. Facebook started in a dorm room.
Most of it started, John, in American universities, which were government supported.
Franklin,
not
fine. I'm not even going to go on that argument. Fine, they're government supported. But let me ask you a question. How did they grow when we didn't have net neutrality? Because we've only had net neutrality for 2 years. So how did these companies that started in those dorm rooms ever succeed without net neutrality? How?
We passed net neutrality in response to efforts by companies to take those over.
By those same companies that grew from a dorm room without net neutrality.
Right, that's exactly the same reason we passed antitrust laws, because they started taking too unfair advantage of it.
Franklin,
that's why we do this.
They grew without it. Everything we have, every advance we have, grew without net neutrality, which is an argument against net neutrality.
No, it's actually not.
Franklin, how do you feel about Jerusalem as a capital of Israel?
Let me tell you what's happening right now in Israel.
Okay.
Everybody remember a few years ago, people were kind of up in an uproar in Georgia because they started putting up bilingual signs everywhere down there because of the influx of Hispanics into the area. Well, over the last 6 months to a year, Israel is having to start doing bilingual signs on all their roads and stuff there. They're putting them in Hebrew and Arabic. And the reason is because they're rapidly on the path of being a country where the minority rules it as opposed to the majority. And it's going to create a problem for us because how do we continue to support a country who denies people the right to vote, for example?
How are they becoming the minority? How are the Jewish people becoming the minority?
Because the growth of the Arab population in Israel is much greater than the growth of the Jewish population in Israel.
Why?
That's how.
Why, Franklin?
Well,
why would that
there's
happen?
a couple of ways it's happened, John. First, one way is that Israel expanded its territory over the last 30 years. Whether that's good or bad, that's not the point I'm making.
Well, actually,
but they took that in.
Let me say they didn't expand their territory. They were invaded, and they fought and won.
Okay. I'm not arguing that, about the morality of that. It's
More
just
land.
a fact.
More
It's a
land.
fact.
More land.
And then they've brought lots of people in to those areas because of natural population growth, and they're rapidly on the way to being a minority in their own country. Now, what's going to happen when that happens?
Well, are you talking about America or Israel?
Israel.
Oh, I thought the same
Well, that's
thing
what
was
I'm
about
getting
to
at,
happen here.
Franklin, is so the only democracy
No, you don't
in the
understand,
Middle
though.
East
The difference
is
no.
allowing people to actually come to their country.
But denying them the right to vote.
Well,
there.
All right, let's take a call.
There's citizens there who can't vote.
Let's take a call. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Hello, Joe Ball. I'd like to ask Franklin Chansey, how many Muslim or Arabic people in Israel are citizens of Israel?
Well, that's the question. If you live there long enough, can you become a citizen? And right now, the Israeli government says no. So how long can you sustain that? Can you forever keep them there, let them work there, pay taxes, do all that, but deny them all the rights of citizenship?
Well, they could move to any other country they wanted to.
Well, I guess you could have said that about black people in America, too.
Franklin, my point
Y'all could
here
just
is-
leave.
No, here's my point on all of this. This is such a crock on all of this. The Palestinians were around before the state of Israel was formed. None of these countries, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, none of them claimed that the Palestinians should have a homeland. None of them gave them
about a homeland.
No, you're
I'm not even having
but
that
that's my,
discussion.
no, but that's my point, Franklin. It wasn't until the creation of the state of Israel that all those other countries all of a sudden said, you know what, these Palestinians, they really deserve a homeland.
I'm not
And
having
it
that
just
discussion.
happens to be the homeland that the Jews have.
I didn't say anything about that, John.
Caller, did you get your answer? Hey, caller, you still there?
Yes.
Did you get your answer?
Yeah. Let me say one thing before you drop me about
No, that's fine.
in California.
Go ahead.
Okay. How can they not have a logic or moral logic trap if they say tax marijuana is okay, but homegrown marijuana by somebody in their backyard is bad? I think that just sets an awful example for young people.
Well, that's the same argument that you had.
In its worst case.
Well, no, you're right. That's the same argument you had when we had the revenuers and the moonshiners. Everybody mistakenly thinks that was about the alcohol. It wasn't about the alcohol. It was about the damn federal tax dollars. They just wanted the money on the alcohol, the government did.
That's where marijuana's going.
They can make a point that the alcohol made by moonshiners could be dangerous. But you can't say that with homegrown marijuana.
No, you're probably right about that.
It's hypocrisy, and it's awful.
As I understand, the law in California now permits someone
Thanks
to
for calling,
grow a
caller.
small amount of marijuana.
Do what?
I understand that the new law in California actually permits people to grow a small amount of marijuana. That's my understanding.
I just think this is a mistake. I think that it is more of this liberalization. It amazes me that on the one hand, we've got a credible movement saying that people should learn to control themselves. Men, particularly, should learn to control themselves. Quit making crude jokes. Quit harassing people. But on the other hand, we are promoting a culture that says, do whatever you want to do. Smoke this stuff that'll incapacitate you. We are not a fact-based culture anymore.
Franklin, what's going to happen with DACA? Is the Democrats going to get involved in helping negotiate something for them, or they just don't care?
It strikes me as one of the easiest things they could possibly resolve. I've never understood what the opposition to it is even. I don't get it. And that's not the overall immigration issue. The DACA folks, I just don't even understand it. I don't understand why anybody opposes it.
How do you think we ought to handle it?
There was a perfectly valid approach that gave them permanent residency here. They still had to apply for citizenship. They could do that faster if they joined the military or something like that. That seemed perfectly reasonable to me.
Well, and Franklin's probably going to stroke out when I say this. He does every other time I've said it. But there was a perfectly reasonable approach that probably had a chance for bipartisan action. The Gang of Eight thing, and President Obama, for political reasons, pulled the rug out from under Marco Rubio. Now, I may not have supported it, but it probably had a good chance to pass. And purely cynically, on a partisan basis, Obama jerked the rug out.
There was a similar proposal brought up when George W. Bush was there.
Fine, I'll
And
criticize
again, he had majorities in both houses at that time.
But the president supported that.
And the president did support it, so you had a majority easily with bipartisan support that would have passed that, and it never even came up for a vote.
But here's the difference, Franklin. I'm not disputing anything you just said. But in that case, the President of the United States was trying to bring both sides together to get something passed, and he didn't get it through Congress. You're right. But in the second case that I'm illustrating, you had Congress trying to get something bipartisan through, and the President of the United States actually threw a wrench in the works for political reasons.
What about chain migration?
That ought to
end. And lottery.
Both of those ought to end.
Are you okay with that?
I think that there are some adjustments to the chain migration that are perfectly reasonable to make, and I think you get bipartisan support for that.
Like a spouse?
I think the lottery thing is a little more difficult, honestly, because that's part of...
That'd be the easiest thing to cut out, wouldn't it?
Why would you want a lottery? Why would you want by chance? Well, maybe we'll bring a terrorist in, maybe we won't.
I mean, to me,
they still get vetted.
If the country has any records to vet,
why do we want a lottery system? Why would we want it?
Why wouldn't we want
people to come here from different parts? But that's a perfectly valid argument, John. Let me just say that, because one of the things that we've stupidly done for the last 30 years, and you can blame Republicans
Allow
and
immigrants
Democrats.
in?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
What?
I don't think that. And I think I think that argument's even offensive.
Okay, what?
We built this country with immigrants.
All right. I don't think we built it the way it's being run now.
We used to actually look at a country and a culture and decide whether they would assimilate into the United States or not.
And you know what? In it, most of the time, it took those people 2 generations to accomplish that assimilation.
And you know what?
And that was normal. And there were whole communities in this country where you go there and the majority
How's
of people
the assimilation
spoke foreign
working
language.
in London? How's the assimilation in the south of France working with all the Muslims that are pouring into France? How's that working, Franklin?
Well, you can argue whether or not.
How'd it work in Germany when rape numbers spiked? How'd it work in Denmark where rape numbers spiked?
John.
How did it work in Denmark where a mayor actually told the women they should dress more covered up so as not to incite being raped?
All right, let's move real quick. We're almost out of time. We've gotten nowhere today. What's going on with
Actually, we've covered a ton of stuff
Huma Abedin?
today.
What's going on with her? Should she be arrested now?
I don't know. Why don't you ask the Republican head of the Justice Department? It's mind-numbingly stupid that we keep having this debate when you guys run the Justice Department. Why aren't they prosecuting her then?
I don't disagree. Why aren't they?
Why are you upset?
She was regularly forwarding her emails. And this is the funniest part. This is a woman that was like,
if it's so clear, just go
second
do
or
it.
third in rank in the State
You
Department.
think it should happen?
I don't know.
She said,
but I just think it's so comical that you guys keep running these diversions. Let's talk about this when you don't ever do anything, and you're in control.
She said that it was too complicated to print off of the Department of State's printing, computer system. So that's why she sent almost every email, including emails with her actual passwords, to the State Department site. By the way, she sent it to Yahoo. Every single site on Yahoo was hacked. We know that, which means they got her passwords to her Department of State email accounts.
Why would she be sending it there? To print it out?
To print it out. She said it was too hard to print under the Department of State.
So she sent it to her husband's laptop?
Right.
Her home computer?
Actually, she sent it to 3 different Yahoo accounts regularly.
I bet her husband shared it with his girlfriend.
I think her husband would have sold it to anybody to save his own hide.
I think we should conclude with this Christmas Eve tweet from Donald Trump.
All right, let's hear it.
The new Pope is a humble man, very much like me, which probably explains why I like him so much.
There's something wrong with that?
Well, the new Pope is a humble man.
Did you? I'd rather end with this. Secretary of the Navy Richard Spencer was photographed visiting Afghanistan, and he had a sidearm. He had a pistol strapped to his leg. And Barbara Starr, who is CNN's Pentagon correspondent, said, "Can someone explain why the civilian head of the Navy is wearing a sidearm?" Well, I don't know. Maybe because he's in Afghanistan, where people regularly shoot at you and would love to kidnap the Secretary of the Navy. That just tells you how out of touch CNN and liberal progressives are with reality.
What it tells you is that the news as a free market commodity doesn't work very well. That's what it tells you.
CNN?
All of them.
Okay.
All of them.
Folks, that's a scary statement.
No.
As a free market commodity. So you're advocating for government?
No. For the vast history of our media in the broadcast age, those organizations were required by the government to devote some of their time for the public benefit, no matter whether they made a profit or not. We changed all that. Now, all of these news organizations have been bought by other private companies. GE owns NBC, and Disney is owned by Fox now, and all that stuff. And we've turned it into something that we buy and sell, and it's totally ratings driven in a way that it never was before. Well, and that's why we have these issues now.
Franklin, your problem with that statement, though, is we did all of that when there were 3 networks and there was no way for anybody else to get a competing message out. There are literally thousands of avenues for people to get news now. We don't need Pravda. We don't need American Pravda.
Well, most people remember those days fondly.
I'm sure you remember Pravda fondly. I don't.
A lot more trust in the media than we do now.
I'm using the word Pravda, and you're talking about trust in the media. That's amazing.
I'm talking about Walter Cronkite and John Chancellor.
You mean the way Walter Cronkite actually shaped the war in Vietnam, when we actually militarily won the war, but we lost it because of Walter Cronkite's shaping of how he presented it?
You mean by telling the truth?
No, Franklin, not telling the Tet Offensive, for example. That was a overwhelming military victory.
You're right, John, it was.
But we lost it because all they showed was the gore and the destruction of war, which has always been there.
Because the President of the United States, a Democrat, and the military continually lied to the American people about how quickly the war was going to be over.
Well, one
that
of the
was that was not true.
Is because when someone like President Nixon started bombing Hanoi, the Democrats said too many innocent women and children are being killed. I'm sorry. The whole point of war is to make it so uncomfortable on the other side that they quit.
You mean the president who we've now found out tanked the peace negotiations before he was elected?
Who, Nixon?
Yes.
Look, they all screw up, Franklin, but a war is war. If you're going to fight a war, fight it to win.
That's treason.
Fight it to win.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first show of 2018. We sure hope you'll stay tuned, and we'll be back next week with some more of this exciting information. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Backfire.